Hi everyone, this is Miss Schmidt with Miss Schmidt Stitches, and today we are finally going to talk about the Red Heart Granny Square all-in-one skeins. These are available at a lot of different retailers such as Joann's, Walmart. I believe I have seen them at Michael's. They do not have them at Hobby Lobby, and you can even get them on Amazon. So I am going to be working with the Citrus Twist variety of this. And as you guys can see, I have already made a fair amount of squares that I have been able to have generally really good success with. However, I'm not exactly sticking to the rules or the directions rather that they have laid out in their directions. I tried it didn't work, and so I'm just doing what works for me, and hopefully my experience with this yarn will allow you to be successful quicker. So the first thing that you're going to do is go ahead and find your end. Now it is required that you pull from the center for these skeins. If you're not happy with that, you can cake them up. But remember, you do need to cake them twice so that directionally that yarn will come out appropriately for you with those 5 different color variations. The pattern calls for a size 4.5 hook. I had to use a size 6.5 millimeter hook in order to meet my gauge. Which these are producing exactly 6-inch squares. And overall, the color worked out really well. There's just a couple of little variations that I had to do in order to make this work for me. So let's go over those. So the first thing that I do is I create a magic ring. Now, the directions do say something like, make sure you leave a 4-inch tail. I didn't do that. My tails were longer. It felt like I had an overly generous amount of this first color. Maybe that's due to weaving and ends. I'm not sure what they were thinking there. So the first thing that I've done is I've made my magic loop. So as you can see here, we have our magic loop. Let me move these out of the way. That way you guys can get a nice clear background picture. I'm trying to do this a little bit more zoomed in so that it's easier for everyone. So we have our magic ring, and I'm going to do first a single crochet. Now, our next step is going to be stacked, a stacked single crochet again. So we're gonna go under right here. We're gonna pull that through, and then we're gonna pull that through. And this is gonna count as our first double crochet. So go ahead and yarn over, and now we're gonna do 2 additional double crochets. So here is that first true double crochet, and here is that second true double crochet. Now, I'm just gonna pull out some of this color here. Perfect. And so now I am going to crochet 2. I believe that the directions said to crochet 3. I didn't do that. And then I'm gonna do 3 more double crochets. Here is, there we go, 1. Here is 2. Here is our 3rd one. And I do apologize for any background noise that you might hear. There is a huge music thing happening in our tourist town this weekend, and so helicopter rides and just general people that are doing advertisements and stuff on the beach they're just going crazy. So I did my 2 chain stitches, and now we're going to go back in for 3 more of our double crochets. So I apologize about the background noise and doing the best that I can here. All right, and here we go again. So there's 3 double crochets. So as you can see, we've got 2 sides. So now we need to do 2 more chain stitches, and then we got to get our last 3 double crochets in there. So here is our first one. Here's our second one. And here is our last one. And so as you can see, I've ran out of yarn. I do need to get 2 more chain stitches in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this up just a little bit, and I'm just going to crochet these just a little bit tighter. Sometime if you don't care about it lining up exactly, it's okay. You can kind of just ignore it. But I kind of like it to look nice and not too sloppy. So I'm redoing mine. Okay. And so now I'm going to do chain 1, chain 2. I'm much happier with that. So now it is time for me to pull my magic loop shut. So we're pulling that shut. And as you can see, it has lined up really well. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to slip in to this first chain right here. And so here's one side, here's the other, and then I'm just pulling that nice and tight. And as you can see, here, I'm going to take my yarn out. So as you guys can see, all of our colors went really well. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in. And so we are basically going to repeat our pattern. So the next thing that we're going to do is going to be that stacked single crochet. One thing that I do want to note is my tail here. After I closed it in, it's obviously much longer than 4 inches. Let me pull my tape out. Let's see here. Mine's about, I would say it's about 8.5 to 9 inches. I don't have this all the way up there, but I mean, it's pretty close to 9 inches. So much longer than their 4 inches, but that is fine. So again, we are going to do that stacked single crochet. So I'm pulling through, and that's our first single crochet. Now we're going to come in here, pull through, pull 1, pull some more of this yarn out. Oh, got a little bit of a yarn barf coming on, but it's okay. We'll live. Okay, so we pulled through 1. Now we're going to pull through 2. So this is going to act as our first single crochet. Now we're coming in for 2 more double crochets. Here is our first one. Here is our second one. So this is going to act as the first. This is the second. Now let's come in for that third double crochet in our cluster. So there we have it. Now it does say that you're supposed to chain 1 here. I don't do that. I'm just going to keep going. So now I'm going to make my next clusters, but I'm going to put it here into this next hole. So here is my first double crochet. Here is my second double crochet. And now we're going to do that third double crochet. Now it's time to make that first corner. So we're going to crochet 2. Here's 1, here's 2. Now we're going to do 3 more double crochets into that same hole. So here is the first one. Here's our second one. And here is our third and final for that corner. Perfect. And as you can see, our corner is shaping up nicely. Now it's time to yarn over and go ahead and start that next corner. That's our first double crochet. Here's our second double crochet. Here is that third double crochet. Now it's time to chain 2, chain 1, chain 2, and let's go ahead and carve out that second corner. Here's our first double crochet. Here is our second double crochet, and here is our third double crochet. So now we have 2 corners and we still have a reasonable amount of this color left. So let's go ahead and make our next cluster. One. Here's 2. And now let's make that third one. Here is that third one. So now we've got to carve out our corners. So we're going to go ahead and chain 2, 1, 2, and time for that next cluster. Here we go. Okay, so we need to get 3 more double crochets in, and then the chain 2, we have about this much yarn left. It is going to be tight. So we have 2 options. We can come back and make these guys a little bit tighter. That's what I'm going to choose to do, or you can try to roll the dice and see if you can make it all the way to the end. With this yarn, there's going to be a little bit of backtracking. You're just going to have to kind of get used to it. Sometimes you'll get lucky and there will be very minimal backtracking. And when that happens, you know, maybe you buy a lottery ticket. I don't know. But overall, the more I do this, the less backing up that I find myself doing. Okay, so right here, we went over a little bit. So I didn't quite backtrack to make it tight enough. So I'm going to take it out to here. And I'm just going to really tighten these stitches down. Alternatively, if you want, you could size down your hook. That might make it a little bit easier for you as well. So you've got a couple of options there. Okay, so there's my 3. We're going to keep it nice and tight, and I think we're going to be okay this time. All right. All right, so boom. So now we just got to get that chain 2, chain 1, chain 2. It's going to be in that other color, but it's going to be okay. All right, so now we've come through here, and now we're gonna slip stitch it together. And we have our second round is completed. So in sticking with our theme here, we gotta go ahead and get our third round started. We're going to go ahead and do that double stacked single crochet. And about here is where I realized things got a little wonky for me. I probably could have sized down my hook on this next round, but what I kind of learned to do was kind of like to cheat stitches a little bit. Instead of doing this, pull the first yarn and then pull two and then pull two. Sometimes I would just pull two and then pull two again just to save a little bit of room on my yarn. So here's 1, 2, 3. So we're going to move on to that next cluster. Again, I'm not chaining one in between. I'm just moving straight into that next one. Okay, here we go. And we're doing that third one now. Now, the first time I did a granny square using this yarn, it took me like an hour just to make one granny square. So it took like a long time. I've gotten a lot faster. I think I'm not a fast crocheter, and I think that now I can do it in about 20 minutes. Which is not very impressive. I know there's people that can crank them out in like a couple of minutes flat. Crocheting to me is a relaxing thing, and so I just take my time. And there is nothing wrong with that. So I am just moving into this first corner. You guys saw I chained 2, and then I just started on my third my cluster here to get that corner completed, and I'll show you that. Pull out a little bit more of this yarn. So you can see here I've got that first corner is done, and things are looking really nice so far. It looks pretty neat. So I'm going to yarn over and move into this middle section. All right. So we're just working on these clusters. But as I was saying, I do think that this yarn is not very beginner granny square friendly. This is, I would say, an intermediate to experienced crocheter type of yarn, because you have to be very aware of your tension and knowing how to estimate how much yarn will be required to complete a series of stitches. If you do not do that, you are going to be pulling out a lot more stitches and are probably going to get really frustrated right out of the gate. And I don't want that for any of you guys. So just make solid color granny squares, or use a variegated yarn that is not this Red Heart granny square all-in-one, because it's just going to frustrate you. So I'm just moving around here. We've got 2 corners completed, and we're moving in for this third one. And we still have a very reasonable amount of yarn left, so I'm not worried yet. Normally it takes me about the last 3 clusters, the last 2 clusters probably, and I'm like, uh-oh, I think we might have a problem. But I'm not having that yet. So let's crank out this last corner. All right, here we go. Oh, what am I doing there? We're not doing that. Silly me. All right, third. Okay, chain 2. I was trying to get that done a little bit too soon. been making so many of these things, trying to master how I use this yarn, that I sometimes just find myself a little bit on autopilot. Okay, here we go. There's a little fuzz here. I'm going to just pop that off. There we go. Okay. Oop. Oop. So I don't have too much. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean about how I cheat stitches. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to complete this last bit here, because I don't have a ton, and I've got to do 2 clusters, and then I've got to get the 2 chains on. So what I'm going to do, as you see here, how I have 3 on my hook, I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull through 2, I'm going to yarn over and pull through 2 again, and I'm just going to call that my double crochet. It's not exactly right, but it looks fine. So there it is. And then let's do our 3rd one. Okay, and let me just show you that. Let me pull the yarn here. This is a true double crochet. This is sort of my cheated one. You really can't tell too much of a difference. So that's just one way to keep yourself from being in trouble with your yarn. Now this one has a little bit of a weird orange right here, so we're probably still gonna end up backtracking just a little bit here. Yeah, we are. So I'm gonna go ahead and have to cheat from here on. So I'm gonna do those cheater stitches to finish up this corner to get me to where I need to be to finish. If you don't like doing this modified double crochet, you can always size down your hook. But I think the modified looks fine. Look, here's the modified and here's the true, and you really can't tell. So I'm just gonna keep going with that. That's what I found to work best, and you have to really do that for these last few rounds, because it's just not enough yarn. And if I use that size 5 hook, I think it was a 5.5 millimeter that it had suggested, I had way too much of that yellow yarn and a little bit too much of that second color, that orange. So this method just ended up working better for me. So you will have to let me know how it works for you, because even look, because that weird color, it's still a little bit off. I need to chain 2 still. So I think I'm just gonna use this color just so you guys can see what it looks like, right? How much of a difference it's gonna make. Now this is gonna show, so maybe I won't do that. Maybe I'm just gonna back up a little bit more. And we'll go from right here. We're gonna use our nice little cheater stitches all the way around this final corner. So here is 1, 2, 3, so 3rd one right here, chain 2, 1, 2, oh. Sometimes I have to remind myself to slow down, because I'm just like, I just get fed up of having to repeat sides to get it to line up. I don't mind the idea of having to weave in ends. The part of this yarn that is appealing to me is that I don't have to make decisions on what colors look good together, because I look at my yarn wall behind me and can mull around for a long time saying, oh gosh, like, did these colors look good together? I don't know. I can't decide. Evan, Sterling, please tell me what you think. And then they're frustrated, and then I have to choose to carry around 5 skeins of yarn in order to make granny squares, or I am having to cake them off or make balls. Okay, so this is much nicer. As you can see, I'm gonna get that true color, and then right here in my chain stitch, it's gonna get a little bit wonky, but it doesn't matter because we're gonna cover that up anyway. So slip stitch to complete that round. So let's just have a look here. As you can see, things are shaping up rather nicely. So now we're gonna go into our 4th round. I am going to do that double stacked single crochet. Okay, so there's my first. Now let's go ahead and do that next stitch. And I'm doing just the regular true double crochets here, but I'm probably gonna run into some trouble with them with running out of yarn. So we'll see. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but for that last round, I really feel like they didn't give us enough of the white, and so I do cheater stitches all the way around with that. So let's go ahead and see if we can just get this to work out with some tight double crochet stitches here. Okay, that skein is just getting closer to me, so I'm gonna, here we go, pull enough of it out to get us around. So I did my 2nd, so now I'm coming in here for my 3rd. Okay, we're going in for the last double crochet of this cluster. Now it's time to chain 2 and then do 3 more in that same hole. So here is our first one. Here's our second. Here is a third. Perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and move into the center hole, one of our center holes, because now we have more than one because this is that 4th round. Okay, here we go. So there's 3. So now we're gonna go ahead and come into our next side, keeping these stitches nice and tight. You can see it's starting to kind of curl there, but it straightens out just fine. Plus, we're gonna block these before we use them. Tell me what you think in the comments I should make. I was leaning towards cardigan. I could also make a shirt / top. I could make a blanket. There's a lot of different things. You can make a bag with these. I've got 4 skeins total of this colorway. Each skein does make 14. So quick math for all of my students, 14 times 4. Yeah. All right. So what should I make? That's a fair amount of squares. I can't wait to hear what you guys suggest, and depending on what you guys say, I will film the finishing of my project using these granny squares. All right, so we are just coming along here in the comments. We are coming along here with getting this side fixed up, not the comments. I don't know where my head is today. I clearly didn't get enough coffee or caffeine. Maybe it's because I'm drinking something different than a Dr. Pepper. I don't know. All right. We are just finishing up here. Let's see here. I wonder how much yarn I have left. Still quite a bit. Oh, here's where that white trails out, and we still have quite a bit. So what I'm gonna do is switch over to those cheating double crochets here, just to make sure that I don't run out. I still have quite a few clusters left to make. We're coming up on our final corner here. Here's the third to that cluster. Now we're going to chain 2. And come back for the next cluster. Now, again, I'm using those modified, I call it cheater double crochet stitches, where we're just taking that first step out, just to make sure that we have enough yarn. More often than not, that you're gonna have not enough yarn than too much. So we've still got 1, 2, 3 clusters left. So that's 9 double crochets plus those 2 chain stitches. So it is going to be a little bit tight. All right, so now we just have 2 clusters. And I think we have about 12 inches, maybe 14 inches of yarn left. So let's see here. I'm gonna back that up because that is not going to do. There's 3. So now we're gonna do our last 3 double modified stitches here. And like, even with that, we're still short. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to tighten these guys up just so that it looks nice and not messy. So we're gonna have to really tighten these guys up here. That's 2. Here is our third one. Let's go in here. Okay, I think this is going to be okay. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, yarn over. Stick it through. There's 1, there's 2. That's going to be okay. Now we're going to chain 2 in the white. It'll be all right. We're going to stick it through here, do our slip stitch. And now for our last round, what we're going to do is we're just going to do cheater stitches the entire way around. That way we have enough tail to actually get this project finished up. And you can see it's laying flat. I haven't even blocked it yet. And we're making, it looks pretty good. Our color changes are pretty clean. So let's go ahead and get in that first double stacked single crochet. And using the double stacked single crochet method allows you to not have to flip your granny squares every round. And I think it just looks nicer. I learned it from watching Passionate Kelsey on YouTube. And she's very no nonsense. She is one of those lightning fast crocheters. And so she does a lot of things that save time. And I really respect her for that. So I have adopted that method myself in making my granny squares. All right, so we're just coming around here. We're just doing those cheater stitches all the way around. We don't have to make them super tight because we're using that stitch. It's saving us a little bit of our yarn, so that's 3. So we're moving on to the next hole here. There's 3, so we're moving on to the next hole for our next cluster. All right, so now we're going to do our chain 2. This is going to create our turn for our corner, but we're going to go into that same hole again. Oh, I yarned over twice. What am I doing? All right, here is that second one. Here's that third to complete our cluster. Here you go. All right. There's 3, so we're moving on to our next spot here. Now, one thing I am curious about is whether or not this type of yarn, the all-in-one granny square yarn, is going to be something that's here to stay, or if this is just a fad experiment and is going to disappear from the shelves or be clearanced out and never return. I personally started with very strong I don't like this feelings towards this yarn, but I didn't want to waste it, and so I kept at it. I actually, fun fact, made a video unwrapping and making a granny square on camera for the first time with my true first impressions of the yarn, and my cell phone died, which meant that there was no hands view for all of you guys to actually see a reasonable tutorial. And so I just decided, you know, let's pivot. Everybody's doing these first impressions of this yarn. Maybe I just need to do something different. And so I went through an entire skein and just crocheted and figured out my methodology for this. And so that is what I am sharing with you, is kind of how I ended up making this yarn work for me. I think that it is going to be a more helpful video for all of you guys to see a way that it actually works, instead of sort of, oh, one of my hairs. Instead of kind of guessing along with someone, because that's not very helpful. And the goal of my channel is to be helpful and to get people off on the right foot with videos that are no nonsense and can help anybody, no matter what their age is, to be able to fall in love with crochet. So if you have any suggestions for me on that or want to comment, please go ahead and share that with me, because I am evolving and adapting my channel based on what you guys say and kind of what I think when I look back at myself and see how things are recording. So we are finishing up this corner here, doing my 2 chain stitches, and we're coming back and coming around. We're continuing with those modified double crochets that I keep calling a cheater stitch, just as a friendly reminder if you are crocheting along beside me. Because I'm not a very fast crocheter, it makes it a lot easier to follow along, because you're not going to have to hit pause too many times to keep up with my turtle speed. All right, so we are in the home stretch, the last side of our granny square. All right, so there's 3, so we're hopping on over to this next hole. Here we go. There's that. Hopping on over. We just have a couple more clusters left, and then we'll be done. All right, we're moving on to our last cluster. We've got a reasonable amount of white, so we don't really have anything to worry about. We won't be redoing this white yarn because we're using that cheater stitch all the way around, and it's just easier, you guys, to not have any frustration with that last row. So there's our 2 chains. Now we're going to come in here and slip stitch this together. And now I am going to just chain 1, grab my scissors. We're going to cut it right here at the color change. Boop. Put our scissors back, and we're going to pull it through. And there we have it. Let me go ahead and straighten it out for you. And we've got our 2 tails right here. Let's grab our tape measure. That. I guess we should pull it that way a little bit here. 6 inches, 6 inches. So we met our gauge. We were using that 6.5 millimeter hook. We did make some slight adjustments on our final row, as well as here about halfway down, we changed to those modified stitches, and we did use a couple just to seal up this corner. But as you can see in this up close, our color changes happened right here. And it's really a minimal difference where we got off right here and here. And if I had been super particular about it, we could have eliminated those. So let me know what you think, and if you will be picking up some of this yarn to experiment with on your own. And until next time, this is Miss Schmidt with Miss Schmidt Stitches. Bye-bye.